Ceremonial oversight in an automated world. Oversight turns ceremonial the moment a signature costs less than understanding. When tools supply answers faster than humans can verify, the appearance of control starts to compete with control itself. In automated systems, oversight becomes a proxy that gets captured by incentives for speed and low friction, rather than incentives for truth. Ceremonial oversight is oversight whose outputs, checkmarks, approvals, timestamps, can be produced without increasing confidence in the decision they are meant to verify. Automation changes the economics of attention. Generating outputs becomes cheap, while validating them stays expensive. That asymmetry creates a predictable shape of behavior. If a tool can draft a report, recommend an action, or fill in a form in seconds, then the human reviewer faces a constraint that does not move with the tool's speed: limited time, limited context, and limited cognitive bandwidth. Verification has a hard floor. Reading, cross-checking, and asking what would falsify this take real minutes and real focus. Now put that constraint inside an organization that measures throughput. The incentive is clear: approve quickly, keep the queue moving, avoid being the bottleneck. The reviewer's role is framed as accountability, but the reward function often pays for velocity and punishes for delay. A feedback loop forms. Faster approvals reduce short-term friction. Reduced friction is interpreted as efficiency. Efficiency becomes a target. The target raises the cost of careful review. Careful review becomes deviance. Deviance gets corrected. Oversight remains present, but it is trained to be light, not true. The trade-off is structural: speed versus assurance. When the system chooses speed, it does not announce "we accept more risk." It instead builds rituals that mimic assurance. Checklists grow longer, approvals multiply, dashboards brighten. These artifacts produce a feeling of control because they are legible. They are also easy to audit. A completed checklist is a clean object. The absence of error is not. This is where metric gaming enters. If a team is judged by review completion rate within 24 hours, then the rational move is to complete reviews, not to improve verification. The proxy drifts. The metric stands in for quality, and then quality becomes whatever the metric can see. Reviewers learn which fields must be filled, which boxes must be checked, which phrases reduce questions. The tool supplies confident language, consistent formatting, and plausible citations. The human supplies the stamp. The system then interprets the stamp as evidence that someone looked closely. The accountability chain looks intact, yet it is hollowed out. Responsibility is distributed, but understanding is not. Everyone can point to a step. I ran the tool. I followed the checklist. I approved the output. That distribution reduces blame, which is its own incentive. It also creates an externality. When errors occur, the cost is paid by whoever encounters the consequences, not by the proxies that pass the work through. Ceremony appears whenever oversight is evaluated by its trace rather than its effect. The trace is easy: a logged approval, a completed form, an attached file. The effect is difficult: fewer harmful decisions, fewer preventable failures, better alignment between action and intent. Tools accelerate traces. They do not automatically accelerate effects. Without friction that forces real verification, the system optimizes the visible layer and lets the invisible layer thin out. This is not a story about bad people or lazy reviewers. It is a story about attention under pressure, and about systems that reward legibility over truth. Oversight is supposed to anchor responsibility, to connect a decision to a human who understands what is being accepted and what is being risked. When oversight becomes ceremonial, responsibility becomes symbolic. The human remains in the loop, but mainly as a liability sponge or a brand of legitimacy. Meaning erodes in quiet ways. A person asked to sign off on what they cannot realistically verify learns to treat their name as a token. Over time, identity shifts from "I understand and stand behind this" to "I complied with the process." That shift is not merely procedural, it changes what people pay attention to. Attention goes to what is measured, logged, and defensible after the fact. Attention leaves what is subtle: edge cases, second-order effects, and the question of whether the tool's answer is appropriate for the situation rather than merely plausible. The core question, when oversight becomes ceremonial rather than real, has a sharp answer. It becomes ceremonial when the system can reliably produce the signals of accountability without paying the cost of verification. At that point, the ritual is doing its job, protecting flow, smoothing coordination, and managing blame. It is not doing the job oversight claims, increasing warranted confidence. A disciplined reflection fits inside a small frame. One frame is this: name one metric that you serve because it is visible, reportable, and safe. Then name one value that metric might erase because it is slow, messy, or hard to prove. In that gap between metric and value, ceremonial oversight grows. The question is not whether checklists and approvals exist, the question is what they are allowed to substitute for. Notice where a signature becomes cheaper than doubt, where an approval becomes a substitute for comprehension, where a dashboard becomes a substitute for inquiry. The system will follow whatever gets rewarded, and it will call the winner accountability. Real oversight costs time, and the system will try to turn that cost into theater. Incentives do not care about your story.